Hi, everybody. Today is Monday, March 9th, 2026, and our dear friend Paul Craig Roberts is here with us. Welcome back, Paul.
Thank you, Nima.
Let me start, Paul, with what's going on right now with the war between the United States and Iran. And here is we had the assassination of the supreme leader of Iran. The new supreme leader was announced last night, and he's in power. He's the son of this Ayatollah Khamenei, which was his father. And we many people are asking what is the objective of what's going on the part of the Trump administration. It seems that the Iranians have their sort of understanding of what's going on. Here is what Kamal Kharazi, he is one of the high ranked politicians in Iran, so close to the supreme leader of Iran, is talking about, and what would be the policy on the part of Iranians. Here is what he said.
Is reporting in Tehran. He has an exclusive interview now with Kamal Asi, who is the foreign policy advisor to the Supreme Leader. CNN is operating in Iran with the permission of the Iranian government, but maintains full editorial control over what it reports. Have a look at this.
Iran has a new supreme leader. What does that mean for your military effort and the confrontation with the United States and Israel?
That means the system is quite functioning.
So the United States says it's drastically degraded the Iranian military, the capabilities as far as missiles is concerned, drones is concerned. How much longer can you do this?
That is one of the false narratives that the United States government is producing. Iranian military is quite strong, as you see, because they have the motivation, they have the arms that they need, which are produced in Iran. As a matter of fact, we are not dependent on any other country for weapons and arms.
So your side is ready for a long war if the United States and Israel choose that. Do you consider this an existential threat to the Islamic Republic?
It is an existential threat to the Islamic Republic, and therefore we have to stay with full might, as we are doing now.
Is your side seeking, or will you seek, a ceasefire with the United States at this point in time, and with Israel?
I don't see any room for diplomacy anymore, because Donald Trump has been deceiving others and not keeping with his promises. And we experienced it in 2 times of negotiations, that while we were engaged in negotiation, they struck us.
How does all of this end then? If you say right now there's no room for negotiation, President Trump says he wants complete surrender, what does that lead to?
There's no room unless the economic pressure would be built up to the extent that other countries would intervene to guarantee this termination of aggression of Americans and Israelis against Iran.
Yeah, here you heard one of the most official views of the Iranian government. I think the most people in the circle of the Iranian decision makers, they feel they understand the same way as Kamal Kharazi was pointing out for us. Your understanding of that, Paul?
Well, I'm not sure I understood everything he said, but I certainly agree that it is an existential matter for Iran. And it's been completely clear that the existence of the Iranian nation is inconsistent, incompatible with the Israeli agenda of Greater Israel. It's been a puzzle to me that the governments involved and the commentators and the news services have never understood that the Israeli agenda of Greater Israel has been implemented during the first quarter of the 21st century by Israel using American money American blood and American diplomatic cover. The United States destroyed Iraq, Libya, Syria, Sudan, Somalia for Israel. These formerly Muslim Arab countries are eliminated. They're no longer obstacles to a greater Israel. Iran is the last meaningful obstacle. And so it's clearly the intention of Israel that Iran shall not exist. And so there's no room for the Iranians to be talking about a negotiation or a ceasefire. If they understand it's an existential matter for Iran, then they have to do the best they can to defeat Israel and America. There's no room for negotiations when the opponent intends the elimination of the state of Iran. So if if the Iranians don't really understand that, they're going to be destroyed. It's amazing to me that they would twice agree to negotiate when Greater Israel means there's no room for negotiation. They are scheduled to be exterminated, just like Gaza, just like Palestine. They're not to be permitted to exist. The Israelis have made this clear over and over, and Trump has made it clear. Unconditional surrender. Trump will decide who is the new Iranian leader. This is telling Iran that you will not be permitted to exist. And so I really get puzzled at why these countries calling for peace, countries often offering to mediate, commentators talking about how the pressures from the oil price might force some accommodation of America to Iran. It can't happen. The United States is ruled by Israel. We attacked Iran because Israel demanded it. We have no reason otherwise to attack Iran. All this talk about a terrorist state with nukes is just mindless propaganda. It's too transparent to even be effective as propaganda. So I never understood what was wrong with the Iranian leadership that they would even agree to negotiations. Because how can you negotiate your own extermination? You can't. And if the Iranians understand this is an existential matter, then they have to win or be defeated. There's no alternative. It's not possible to have a negotiation or make an agreement. If they pursue that, they will be destroyed. They should have learned by now. They had an agreement not to make nuclear weapons. We threw it away at Israel's command. We started it all over again. We never had any intention of making an agreement about nukes. This was a cover for the attack. So Trump could say, well, they didn't agree. Well, they did agree. But why did Iran think agreeing would matter? The United States and Israel could care less if there's an Iranian agreement not to make nukes. That is not the purpose. The purpose is to exterminate Iran. They fail to understand that. If they don't understand that, they will be exterminated. This is the agenda of Israel. It's the agenda Israel has imposed on Trump, on the United States. Look, 77% of the Republicans favor the war. Why? Because Israel wants it. That's the real situation. There's never been any chance of an agreement. The United States doesn't want an agreement. Israel doesn't want an agreement. The pretense of negotiations is to be able to say that Iran didn't agree, so we attack them. If there's a ceasefire, it will be used by the United States to build up the supply of missiles, to improve the air defense of its bases in the Persian Gulf, and the whole thing will start over. So if it's actually true that the Iranians have a larger supply of missiles than does the United States, then Iran is going to have to fight this war to a victory. They're going to have to destroy Israel. They're going to have to destroy all the American bases in the area, all the American ships in the area. They're going to have to fight for their existence. There's no alternative, none. If they think there's an alternative and they again make the same mistake they've already made 3 or 4 times, they're going to be destroyed. So that is the real situation. The agenda that's operating has nothing to do with nuclear weapons. It has to do with greater Israel. This is a continuation of the wars that started in 2001 with the George W. Bush administration to get rid of 7 countries in 5 years. The 7 countries were picked by the Zionist neoconservatives. They were published in Commentary magazine by the editor, Norman Podhoretz. They're in the Project for a New American Century. We had General Wesley Clark describe it several times on television. 7 countries in 5 years. Well, which remain? Iran, Saudi Arabia. That's what's been going on. Anybody who believed it was a war on terror is stupid beyond belief. There was no war on terror. There was a war for greater Israel. And that's what's going on now. This is not a war because Iran won't agree not to make nukes. That's a cover story for Washington, a cover story for Netanyahu. The intent, the purpose, the agenda is to destroy the existence of Iran. We've already paraded around the son of the Shah as our next puppet. Well, the danger of all this, of course, is greater Israel is going to unleash all kinds of interventions inside the Russian Federation. It's going to bust up BRICS. It's going to bust up the new Chinese Silk Road. And out of that is going to come a really big war with nukes. So what the United States is doing in furthering the agenda of greater Israel is preparing a nuclear Armageddon, a real World War III. That's what is coming out of this. I am amazed that the Russian and Chinese governments don't see the threat to themselves. And they sit there on their butts and let a war start they could easily have stopped. They could have blocked it very easily. It's almost like, Numa, there's no comprehension among the governments in the world to comprehend reality. If Iran becomes an American puppet state, then they're going to be jihadists causing trouble in the Russian Federation. BRICS is going to fall apart because nobody can trust the Russians to do anything. The new Chinese Silk Road is going nowhere. China has already lost half of its oil supply. What will this do to China as an economic power, as a military power? It's debilitating. And they sit there and let it happen, do nothing. These are inexplicable occurrences. It makes no sense. Russia or China, much less both of them, could have stopped this at zero cost to themselves. Well, if the Israelis and the Americans prevail, it's going to be a huge cost to Russia and China. So why do they take these risks they didn't need? And the question remains, is Iran going to again fall into the trap of a negotiation? If they are, they're finished. If they're finished, there's going to be a really big war because of the consequences for Russia and China. So that's my take on it. I don't think the Iranian clip that you just played was quite forceful enough.
Yeah.
But perhaps there is some recognition that this is an existential matter for Iran. But do the Iranians understand that if it is an existential matter, they have to fight for victory? There's no way they cannot win. They can gain nothing by negotiation because the intent of the United States and Israel is to be rid of Iran as a sovereign, independent country.
Well, what he said at the end, that he said there is no room for negotiations and diplomacy because the United States is not reliable, partner, is not a reliable adversary to talk with, to negotiate with. And what was the solution on his part? That the continuation of the war would inflict such a suffering of economic suffering on all of these countries that are dependent on the oil, on the Persian Gulf, on the, I would say, on the Red Sea, the Bab el Mandab, and they're gonna come with a solution, not the United States and Israel, because the United States and Israel, nobody trusts the United States and Israel anymore in Iran. That's why they're talking about other players
Well,
playing their role.
let me say what I find two things wrong with that. One, he said there's no room for negotiation because we can't trust the Americans. But what he should have said, there's no room for negotiation because they intend our extermination. And we're not going to negotiate our own extermination. That's what he should. It's nothing to do with trusting the Americans. He didn't say their agenda is to destroy us. That's the first trouble with what he said. The second trouble is he's relying on outside forces to stop this. Well, stopping it doesn't get rid of the agenda. Suppose outside forces somehow can stop it. the agenda remains. And Washington and Israel will just go to work on the next attempt. And so, even if outside forces hurt by no energy can somehow force a halt, it simply will start up again because the agenda hasn't been killed. The only thing that can kill the agenda of greater Israel that requires the elimination of Iran as a country is the defeat and destruction of Israel. Nothing else can rid the world of the greater Israel agenda. If the Iranians don't understand that, yeah, they can survive a little bit longer while somebody stops it for now. But the agenda will remain. The Israeli agenda of greater Israel will remain. That has to be killed. How do you kill that? If the United States somehow overnight ceased to be a puppet state of Israel, that might kill the agenda because the United States could say, no more money, no more weapons. But the Israelis have such a hold on the United States, both parties, the House, the Senate, the presidency, the universities, the media, entertainment, book publishing. What is it they don't influence? Indeed, control. I'll say control. What don't they control? When in the middle of a genocide that the Israelis are conducting on Gaza, the Palestinians, they can send the prime minister over here and he can get 55 standing ovations from the House and the Senate. That shows you who has the power. So this is the problem. An agenda which requires the destruction of the entire Muslim Middle East. That is what greater Israel requires. It's not a conspiracy theory. Netanyahu himself, not long ago, held up the map of greater Israel. A number of Israeli ministers have since expanded the map. It was first from the Nile to the Euphrates, and then a government minister says, well, now it includes half of Saudi Arabia. And then later another one says it's now from the Nile to Pakistan. So this is what the Iranians have to understand. There's nobody can save them as long as this agenda exists. This is, and no one understands this. Putin hasn't a clue. The Chinese haven't a clue. The Indians haven't a clue. The American population hasn't a clue. Europe, they haven't a clue. I'm not even sure the Iranians understand it. And they're the ones with the target. So I hope I made it clear. I'm not very convinced by the Iranian that you showed the clip because how does he get rid of the Israeli agenda? That what they should be negotiating is not whether Iran is to have nuclear weapons. They should be negotiating whether or not Israel is permitted to have an agenda that the entire Middle East belongs to them. That's what should be under negotiation. And if the Iranian leadership was perceptive, they would have said a long time ago, oh, that's not the problem. It's not the problem, our nuclear weapons. The problem is Israel's agenda. We want to negotiate that. In fact, given Israel's agenda, instead of saying they don't want nuclear weapons, the Iranians should be working as hard as they can to get them. Maybe that would protect Iran from the agenda. But it's this agenda that's the problem. Israel is the problem. Israel's agenda of Greater Israel. This is not a conspiracy theory. Greater Israel is an established Zionist agenda. They talk about it continually. They have maps showing it. So there's no chance, as far as I can see, of the real issue entering into discussion. The American foreign policy community wouldn't touch it. Trump would never touch it. Oh, it's Iran is evil. Iran is evil. Terrorist, terrorist, evil, evil, terrorist. Well, Iran doesn't have an agenda of greater Iran. This is the Israeli agenda. And the only other country that has a comparable agenda is the United States, the Wolfowitz Doctrine, greater America, American hegemony. What are we seeing? Oh, here's Trump. I'm going to choose. I'm bringing democracy to Iran, but they can't choose their leader. I'm going to choose the leader of the democracy I'm bringing to Iran. All right. And then the other day we had the Deputy Secretary of State. He said, we're not going to allow India to rise up like China and be a threat to us economically. So there goes Indian sovereignty. India's not allowed sovereignty. Oh, as soon as we get a new country going in Iran, I'll deal with Cuba. Cuba's next. So here you have greater America. This is the Wolfowitz doctrine of American hegemony over everyone except Israel. So the Israeli-American alliance is the alliance of two hegemonic agendas. That is the only threat in the world. There's not any other threats. That's the threat. It's not discussed. Nobody would mention it other than me. You can't get a discussion. It'll work out. Something, this will never happen. Blah, blah. It's happening in front of people's eyes. There was no war on terror. There was a war for greater Israel. War is still continuing. It's now 25 years old. That's the war Iran is in. Iran should have known it was in that war in 2001. Each of those countries that have been destroyed should have known they were in that war and unite. They should have united. Nobody knew anything. Nobody could see the obvious. There's no acceptance of reality. Oh, we don't like it. Reality doesn't please us. It's too bothersome. We don't know what to do about it. So we're living in a different reality. We're making it up. Saddam Hussein was a threat to the world. He had weapons of mass destruction. Now they say the same thing about Iran. Why didn't Iran see it coming? So And I also don't understand how in the world that guy would be giving an interview to CNN, because instantly the Israelis are going to know where he is. I'm surprised he wasn't blown up while he was giving the interview. I mean, how can you give an interview after they've wiped out so many of the leaders, including the supreme leader, and you're sitting there with somebody from CNN? Were they in Iran? Well, I'm surprised the missile didn't come in the window. So again, it shows almost an inability to comprehend the situation. I would expect this new Ayatollah is going to get eliminated too. And it's going to go on. So that's the real situation. It's not just my take. I think that's the factual situation. We have two hegemonic powers in alliance. They're firmly in fact, we are totally controlled by the Israelis. They say it over and over. Oh, well, don't worry about the Americans. We control them. I don't know how many Israeli prime ministers have said that. A bunch of them. Oh, we don't have to worry about the Americans. We control them. They do. They're speaking the truth. And their agenda is the controlling agenda in the Middle East. You know, you have these commentators, oh, it's all about the oil. The Americans want the oil. It's unbelievable. Obviously, they don't have any idea what they're talking about. So I don't know if there's anything else to be said, Nima. I really don't. And uh, the real question is, if the Iranians do have a large stockpile of missiles, and the Americans and the Israelis do not, the Iranians are going to win. And how is Trump going to save face? Nuke Iran. And the failure of the Russians and the Chinese to enter into a mutual security agreement with Iran leaves Iran open to be nuked. So again, we see the total, inexcusable failure of the Russian and Chinese leadership. Wherever you look, everything has worked perfectly for Israel and Trump, or Zionist America, because that's what Trump represents. Trump is Zionist America. His MAGA supporters are Christian Zionists, a contradiction in terms. His entire government are Zionists. No member of the House or Senate would say a word against Israel. They would be eliminated from the House and Senate in the next election. So that's the real situation. It's not about the oil. It's not about any of the things all the commentators talk about. It's Greater Israel. That's the agenda. Greater Israel. It's happening. We're watching it. There goes Iraq. There goes Libya, Sudan, Somalia, Syria. And now we see the Israelis have Lebanon under attack while they are attacking Iran. So with Lebanon if Lebanon goes, so does Hezbollah. So another Israeli enemy is wiped out.
Paul,
It's
these attacks started. They said they thought, at least from what we've heard from them, that this attack would bring down the government, the so-called regime in Iran, with the assassinations, and then they thought that the people in Iran would come out and help do the heavy lifting for the United States. That didn't work so far. Right now, they're talking about the Kurdish group being part of that, doing what the United States want to do on the ground without sending American troops or Israeli troops. Because when it comes to the capabilities, to the numbers, it doesn't seem that the numbers are that much promising to go with that plan, to go on the ground. And we know somehow the Turkish government understand the threat of what is going on. And here is what Erdogan was talking about in terms of the role of Israel.
No one should plan for the future with wrongdoings. They should not fall into the scheme of Israel's pitting brothers against each other. We welcome the statements made from the Iraqi, northern Iraqi government. And another topic which was mentioned by the opposition is border security. We do not have.
Yeah, he said he's somehow warning the Kurdish people in the Iraqi Kurdistan, don't do whatever you have in your mind. I know that you understand the threat. You understand what Israel is trying to do. Is somehow threatening or somehow admiring them not to go in that direction. Let's assume you've mentioned the final goal. If the United States or Donald Trump together with Netanyahu feel that they're going to lose the war, they're going to nuke Iran, they're going to use nuclear weapons. Before getting there, what is the strategy on their part as we talk? Are they still thinking of the ground invasion of Iran and how that could help the United States?
there are not enough Kurds to send a force that would have any effect. Iran is a very large country. It is larger than France, Germany, Spain, and Great Britain combined. So you're talking about a country as large as Western Europe. Kurds? How many Kurds are there? As for the Turkish leader, he doesn't have enough sense to know that he's targeted also by Israel because they're Muslim. They're not Arabs. And what did he do? He helped Israel and the United States destroy Syria. He didn't have enough sense to know that Syria was a necessary ally for the protection of Turkey. He let some minor, irrelevant consideration about Kurds remove a buffer that protected Turkey. So he hasn't got any sense either. He helped destroy part of the Arab world, thereby making it easier for the United States and Israel to achieve Greater Israel. So it would be a mistake to expect anything intelligent out of Turkey. There's talk about troop movements, American troop movements. We haven't got enough troops to invade Iran. The country's it's vast. It's too big. the same thing would happen to us that happened to the German army that went into Russia. It's not. I think Israel understands this and has understood it from the beginning, and they'll work us through these processes until there's no alternative but a nuke. And then now you will tell Trump, look, you got to save your bacon. You can't accept defeat from Iran. You said that they're great terrorists and evil, and they're going to have nukes, and you got to finish this. So I think from the beginning, Netanyahu has planned on getting rid of Iran via nuclear weapons. I think he knew that Iran was not going to collapse. I think he knows there's no possibility of a land invasion. Hell, the Israelis can't hardly invade southern Lebanon. How they going to? They can't if they can't stand up to the Hezbollah militia. How are they going to stand up to the Iranian army? They don't have the numbers. Israel is a tiny little place. I mean, the population of Iran has to be 10 times that of Israel. It may be more, because if the reports are correct, that a lot of Israelis have been leaving Israel. So this is why, I think I was very prescient when, for years ago, I said, look, there's going to be a big blow up in the Middle East unless Iran, Russia, and China announce a mutual security agreement. That's the only thing that can stop it. And neither of the governments had enough intelligence to see that. And they still don't. It's extraordinary to me that the Russians and the Chinese would let this happen. It suggests to me that the governments are basically too stupid to be in office. It disqualifies them as competent people. That Putin and Xi would sit there and let this catastrophe happen, because it's going to be catastrophic for them in the end. That's where it's going. And for them not to see this and not, I think this is the greatest blunder in the military history of the world. And I don't, maybe they'll catch on. This Alexander Dugin in Russia is holding Putin's feet to the fire, especially about his unwillingness to defeat Ukraine. I mean, that told me that Putin would let a war like that go on and on and on, and all the risk of it expanding and expanding. And that told me he didn't have the wits to stop the problem in the Middle East. But it would have been easy. He stopped Obama's planned invasion of Syria by sending in the Russian Air Force. So the one time that he did anything proactive, he then later turned his back and walked away. I don't know why he walked away from Syria and lost Syria. But there doesn't seem to be intelligence operating in the world. Where are the leaders that have any sense? Other than Netanyahu. He's got the whole world dancing to his tune. I don't even think the governments hurt by oil shortage will do anything. So it's a mistake. That's another reason it's a mistake for Iran to be relying on some outside. If Iran wants to survive, it has to destroy Israel. Otherwise, Israel's going to destroy Iran. They'll use us, of course. But that's the real situation. To pretend there's going to be some peaceful settlement is an absurdity. If there's a pause in the agenda, it'll just be so the agenda can build up and come at it in a new way. But I haven't heard Netanyahu say, well, if we can resolve this, we give up Greater Israel. I haven't heard him say that. Oh, no, we disavow Greater Israel. That was a mistake. The maps we all held up, smirking. Oh, we shouldn't have done that. We disavow that we want to be the dominant force in the Middle East. And I haven't heard anybody in the Trump administration or the American foreign policy community say, we disavow the Wolfowitz doctrine. We no longer claim hegemony over. I haven't heard anybody. I hear Trump now saying he's going to determine India's policy. He's going to appoint the new head of Iran, that he's governing Venezuela, and he's going to get around to Cuba. I still don't know. He hasn't given up his claim to Greenland, as far as I know. If this isn't hegemony, what is? So the only hope is that Iran is too big a project for the Americans. And perhaps the Chinese and Putin will come to their senses in time before we nuke them, and simply say, well, we've got this mutual security agreement. Now that would stop the war, because for the war to continue, it would mean we and Israel would also be at war with Russia and China, which is far, far beyond our capabilities. But I don't think either government has the wits to act in an intelligent way. Or they would think, oh, that was risky, or that's not intelligent. What's intelligent is to quiet it, dampen it down. Well, you can't dampen down an agenda that's in operation unless the agenda is abandoned. Either Israel has to abandon the agenda or the agenda has to be defeated militarily. Now, we could work on trying to get Israel to abandon that agenda. But as long as that agenda is operative and as long as they have the influence that they have over the United States, that agenda is determinate and nothing else means anything. And peace talks and mediation and all of this, it's nonsensical. So, as you can see, it's very easy to see how simple it is. There's an unrecognized Israeli agenda in operation. It's been in operation, I think, for decades. It's been actively in operation in war for a quarter of a century. That's what the entire American war on terror was. They used that to deceive the American people. But what they're doing is removing barriers to Greater Israel. And that's what we're doing in Iran. That's it, period. There's nothing else but that.
Paul, what do you make of the Modi's visit to Israel before the war started? He went to Israel, talked with Netanyahu, he said something, and what is the agenda on the part of India? Do they have any sort of agenda? Do they really understand what they're dealing with? And
It makes no sense what he did. It's senseless. You know what I think is that a lot of these countries, India, for example, India, I don't think India has a national consciousness. I don't know. I mean, maybe in some of the educated classes, some of them. I don't know what happened to the followers of Gandhi, who, for some reason, it was important to them that India be independent. I don't know how much of the country was ever caught up in that. I don't know if I just don't ever see any sense of an Indian national consciousness. Maybe it's just too old of a country. It's been ruled by too many people for centuries and centuries that there's just not the notion of a nationalistic existence. So, a Tower of Babel. I think this is true of a lot of countries. And maybe I don't. Maybe the Chinese have a national consciousness. I don't know that they do, but they might. I know that Putin tries to encourage a nationalistic consciousness within the Russian Federation because there are different people there. They've got Muslim elements there as well. So, but how real Russian nationalism, I don't know. I think Stalin created it or recreated it in response to the German invasion. And I think that fighting for Russia rather than fighting for communism was the element in the Red Army's motivation to defeat the Germans. They were fighting for Russia. They weren't fighting for communism. And I think Stalin understood that to prevail, he had to have a national consciousness. I don't know what happened to Russian national consciousness during the 30 years that they were basically just, destroyed. When the Soviet Union collapsed until Putin's speech in 2007 at the Munich Security Conference, Russia just, there wasn't, it wasn't a Russia. So, who has the strong nationalist conscience? The Zionist Israelis. Very, very strong. And not only that, it's backed up by their theology. They have God's permission for what they do. And all of the national consciousness in the Western countries, including the United States, have been eroded in the last several decades. They're eroding away, self-doubt, self-criticism, massive influx of unassimilable aliens. A country that doesn't have a strong sense of nationhood is weak. Israel certainly has a strong sense of nationhood. So it's the main actor in the world today. You know, it's amazing. It's a tiny state. And who is the most effective presence in the world? It's Netanyahu. He is, I mean, no one else is a player. It's almost like he has a stage to himself. You know, I'm critical of Israel and their policies and where this is leading the world, doom and disaster. But I have to admire the guy's just his ability to prevail and dominate. He dominates the United States. This tiny little country, just tiny, and he dominates. It's an extraordinary thing. And apparently, there's nobody going to challenge him. And we can see the Arabs a total failure. They couldn't stand up to Israel, despite their massive numbers, and they were pathetic. They'd rather fight each other. The Muslims now, where they it's the Taliban and the Pakistanis are now at war, right? It's an extraordinary thing. So I keep repeating myself, saying the same thing over and over. But
Yeah.
you do that when nobody seems to be able to grasp. You keep saying it. Wake up, listen. This is the outcome of this. I mean, there may be some interruptions, but the outcome of this is either Israel's going to be destroyed or Iran's going to be destroyed. Because the existence of Iran is incompatible with Greater Israel. And I'm convinced that the Israeli Zionists are not going to denounce Greater Israel. They're not going to say, well, this was an ideal, but it was too big for us. We can't. It was unrealistic. And so we're giving it up. They're not going to say that. And the American neoconservatives are not going to say, well, American hegemony, that was too big for us, so we're giving it up. They're not going to say that. They're going to choose the Iranian leader. They're going to determine Indian trade policy. They're going to go in Venezuela or Greenland, Cuba, who knows who's next? Canada. That's just, and all the while, he'll be the peace president.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. Paul, thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today. Great pleasure, as always.
Okay. Well, Neiman, do us all a favor. When you get your guests on and they're talking about this, ask them, how can peace come to the Middle East as long as the Israeli agenda is Greater Israel? Doesn't this mean that either Israel or Iran have got to be destroyed? One or the other has to go. Isn't that? So what is all this talk about mediation? And
But the problem, Paul, is that it doesn't stop there. It goes to Turkey, it goes to Pakistan, because these countries are the problem as well.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it can't go there unless it gets rid of Iran.
Yeah. Yeah.
And no one, if people don't realize the problem and they don't organize quickly, the nukes are going to go off, because I don't think we in Israel were prepared for this missile war. We haven't got the means to continue it. We can't send in troops. This is a midterm election year. If Trump loses the House and Senate, he's likely to be impeached and removed from the presidency if he's losing a war. He started a war, he said, be over in 3 days. And now he's talking about months. Oh, we'll never send troops. Now they're talking, looking for troops. This tells me it's not going good,
Yeah.
despite all the propaganda in the Western media, which is nothing but lies. So Russia and China are running out of time to get involved in some way that blocks this from developing, because Trump cannot accept a failure. And the only thing he has that guarantees him a win is nukes. So
Thank you. Thank you,
you,
Paul.
you press
Yeah,
people,
sure.
press them. We've got to make them think.
Yeah.
We're tired of the same endless bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so long,
Thank you,
Naima.
Paul. See you
Send
soon.
me the URL.
Sure. Sure. Bye.